Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bedtime podcast, where, recently in America, Florida, Miami, a very big condo building fell down, with 159 people still missing. Yeah, 159, and the death toll still rising. It's very, 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 I don't know how to say it. It's it's an incident that no one expected. I'm guessing the death toll is going to rise, which is probably expected. Very expected, I'd say. But the 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 building, I'd say, was probably very old. Um, and that would probably explain how it collapsed. Um, I'm just getting on this right now. Most of these streets are like 5 hours, probably like an hour ago around that. Um, yeah, but the 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 whole building just collapsed. There's videos of it. You can definitely, I'll post in the description of this podcast that of a video that actually made it like where it fell. I don't know how they got that video, but yeah, where it actually fell. Um, I yeah, it's there's a photo I'm looking at right now. Basically, the condo on around it looks like a beach because I can see palm trees in the distance on Collins Avenue. Around half the condo fell, by what I can see. Um, it just fell out of nowhere. It's very, very. It was very, very, very like large. I'm guessing there was a very, very large, like, like a lot of people heard it. Is what I mean. A very large sound when it fell. I mean, I have to be an idiot to not say there wasn't a sound when it fell. But yeah, I don't know how they got the recording. I'm guessing it was probably from a security camera. But yeah, it just fell. It's quite. It was a bit. It definitely ruckus the world, especially in Australia. I saw it on the news last night. Where by then it only had one death. Which, by the way, to the families who've been affected by this, rest in peace for the people who have been affected by this. But yeah, it really shook me when I saw it because I was going through Twitter, and obviously I remembered it falling, and I remembered the time and place it fell. Um, and I do remember when I saw it on the news. It was very breaking news. It was literally on breaking news. I haven't seen breaking news in probably 2 years. This is definitely one of the biggest things around. This is definitely one of the biggest pieces of news that's been floating around for a while, and I'm surprised it hasn't been going on for a bit longer. But 159 people missing, death toll of, by what I know right now, is one, and it's still climbing. Um, Around a large portion of the building has fallen. Now, it's very hard to say what happened and how it fell. Now, I'm guessing it fell. I'm guessing it probably fell by just being the building structure was very old, couldn't handle it all. But there's also other reasons on how it could fall, like there could have been someone to it. You don't know. You never know if there was someone who actually made it for themselves using, like, I don't know, underground explosives. Like, you never know. it's 100% possible that anything could have happened here. But by what we suspect, it was probably just the structure was very old and all fell down. But that's probably, yeah, I'd say that's probably what happened. Now, by one the photo I'm looking at, there's a lot of fire trucks around. There's a lot of fire trucks on Collins Avenue. The building seems to be around tan, I'd say. It's got black rails on the balcony. Around half of it fell, which I've already explained, and it looks to be on a beach because of pine trees. There's around a white fence around the building, and there's lights, obviously. Yeah, I haven't seen news like this in a long time. Yeah, so this is this is one of the quotes that's been said by the journalist Barbara Sprunt, who said, "A Miami-Dade fire rescue truck is seen Thursday in the front of debris from partially collapsed Clampton Towers South Complex of Surfside, FLA, F-L-A, North Miami, Florida, north of Miami Beach." So it's Miami Beach. Yeah, it just collapsed. Basically, is what is what people. Yeah, basically did. So this is some. So it's definitely it's still undergoing inspection. So the cops are still looking onto the building. By what I'm reading right now, possible weakening of concrete. Definitely possible. There's also another thing. Was the building sinking over time? Could have been possible. These are all possibilities. The building could have been sinking. I'd say it was just possible from weakening concrete is what happened. But it could also be possible that the building was sort of slowly getting to that point. It probably wasn't built right by what it definitely wasn't built right. Because it was built, by what I can see here, it was built in the 1970s. Yeah, so around 50 years old now, nearly. So I'd say this building's probably nearly 50 years old, or even if 50 years old. Or around, it could be even fucking 40 years old, I'm not sure. But, yeah, so, yeah, but maths is not my thing. But, yeah, the building definitely wasn't built right. As I said before, the building structure was very old. It wasn't very old, but it was probably built with bad materials. Yeah, I don't know how to really explain much. Yeah. So I'm just reading this and some more tweets and stuff, because usually I find most of the stuff on Twitter. But last night I found it on the actual news. So yeah, I'm gonna read a paragraph for you guys. By obviously Barbara Sprunt. I'll leave the description of this article in. I'll leave the article in the description. So I'll read this out to you. As search and rescue operations continue, questions abound as to why the Champlain Towers South Complex near Miami, only 40 years old, yes, I was 40 years old, partially collapsed on Thursday. Charles Burkett, the mayor of Surfside, Florida, told reporters the building has undergone various minor construction, including recent roof work. So basically, the building actually has had work on it. It hasn't just been left there. So yeah, they have been keeping maintenance to the building, but it seems like it just wasn't enough. I'm gonna read a bit more. But there's roof work being done on the buildings all the time. It's hard to imagine that. It's hard to imagine that spelling mistake that could have been something that impetus for such a catastrophic collapse. I'm sure that it probably wasn't, he said. The Burkett added the building, which housed more than 136 units, I'm not really an older building. Yeah, so it housed 136 units. That's insane. Especially 159 people missing, 136 units. It could have been possible. Either there was couples in there, but there was definitely families probably in there too. Um, it's yeah, it's I'd say the way to fix some of these issues to stop it happening again is definitely work on the structure of the buildings, and we need more expensive materials. Well, not expensive, but more better materials that don't cost cheap. Something that will actually keep the building up. So this one is possible weakening of concrete, which I'm going to read out. Greg Batista, an engineer who specializes in concrete repair projects, told the Herald, obviously a newspaper article place, he suspects concrete spalling, a process where salt water keeps into the concrete near a beach, so obviously the salt water seeps into the concrete and ultimately causes support beams to rust, expand and weaken to be a factor in the building's collapse. So salt water seeps into the concrete, causes rust onto beams, expands and weakens the beams, and the building collapses, which is probably what happened. Now this is another bit I'm also going to read. If you have one column subjected to spalling, the number one suspect here, it could fail. Basista told the paper. That one beam could bring down the whole building like a domino effect. And it's true. One beam can bring down a building like a domino effect. Because everything holds everything up, everything holds everything up. So once one thing falls, then it's now uneven, because now something's holding everything up, So now it's going to fall, because now there's not enough weight on the bottom to support the top. Now, there's also another conspiracy where it was the building sinking over time. So, an April 2020 study by Florida International University professor Shimon Waldowski, a University of Padua professor Simone Fayaski, I don't know how to pronounce these names, obviously I'm leaving the article in the description, found that the area where the building collapsed showed signs of land subsidence. That term's use is to describe the settling or sinking of the Earth's surface. It has a variety of causes. The study noted that areas with a subsidence are increasingly likely to experience serious effects in rising sea levels. Wdoinski and Fayaski found that in the 1990s, Miami Beach experienced subsidence at a rate of 1 to 3 millimeters per year. So I think that Miami Beach was rising, I think. Which the former said that it could add a few inches over the course of the decade. So I'm not 100% sure what this means, but if you're into all that concrete, or if you're into building buildings, then you could definitely understand what's going on. But according to the press release from the university, Wodoninsky said that land subsidence would not be the sole cause of the building's collapse. So, rust is rust is probably the biggest play in the collapse. When we measure substance, or when we see the movement of buildings, it's worth checking why it happens. Wodowinski said, "We cannot say what is the reason for that from satellite images, but we can say there's a movement. There was a movement here." So, honestly, I don't know much. I'm pretty dumb, but all I know is that it was probably bad bad beams. The salt water was probably heading into the building, collapsing it. building rust up into the building, which ultimately probably caused its collapse. I'd say it was probably from the rust. Um, but yeah, I'd say if you live in Florida, if you live in America alone, this is probably a big thing for you guys because I live not in America, so it's definitely obviously it's a big thing for me, and I wish peace for the families that were affected by this, and hope that the people are okay who were actually inside the building at the time. Um, yeah, it's for you guys in America and around the world as well. This will definitely be one of those big big um incidents that happen around them because these happen very rarely, and if they do happen, most of the time they get dug under because usually usually those those type of things they just get wiped under the rug. They don't usually get as much screen time as this one. Because this one kind of confused me why it got like a lot of um a lot of moves on it and a lot of interactions with it. And I think it's with I think it might have been a significant building around then because it was made around 40 years ago. It is 40 years old, by what I mean. But yeah, it's definitely. I'd say just don't put beams inside a building near the ocean. But I can't blame the builders, they probably had no idea. But I do hope that everyone is okay. It's very likely, as I'm saying, and just speaking out of what I've read, it's likely that the death toll will rise. And how 159 people were missing, probably under a lot of rubble. I am very sorry to the families that have been affected by this, but we're just gonna have to hope it either gets better or everyone's okay. But I'm sorry to everyone who was affected by this. It's definitely one of those big definitely one of those big stories that needs to be covered, especially how and a lot of amount of people went missing. But yeah, I'd say this was no one's fault. It was definitely no one's fault. It wasn't the builder's fault. It wasn't the guy who designed its fault. It's just it happened like this. And at the time, probably no one knew that the salt from the ocean, this the that the salt from the actual ocean could seep into the concrete or the beams and rust it. They probably didn't have that type of information back then. So no one can be blamed for this. It's just one of those things that happened, and very very bad. We can all tell it's very very bad, and it's no one's fault. I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure no one had the information back then, but we just need to keep hope for the people who are affected by this, and for everyone in the country really, and everyone in the world, to keep hope for the people who are in this building at the time of the collapse, but and for the families. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to really build it much bigger or build it further or you know dig a hole for myself. But I'd say it was the beams that probably caused this. But I'm hoping everything gets better. It will get better, and it definitely will get better. But it will take time just as COVID, it came, it infected people, it caused damage, and it's starting to lower down a bit now. But still, at the same time, it lingers. It lingers around. And that's why we need to keep protection from the virus that lingers around. So obviously we wear masks, and this is sort of reflecting on COVID, on how we built it with bad materials or at the wrong location, and built it with bad materials, and it collapsed. And yeah, and it collapsed, and now it needs repairs, and the repair part of COVID would have been putting people in lockdown and wearing masks, and this is what we're doing. The repair moment is bringing in the fire brigade, policemen, searching for the people who have gone missing, and then the final bit would be lingering, and this is definitely the most hardest bit to get by. The hardest bit is to get rid of the lingering, how to stop making lingering, but it will forever be into history now. But we need to know that people need to stay strong in these type of times. But yeah, I hope everyone who was affected by this is okay, though. Definitely the world hopes that hopes that the families will get better who have lost people, hopes that the missing people will be found alive, or found at all. We're just gonna have to hope, alright? Anyways, there's definitely a more serious story today, and definitely a sadder story today. But I think we will be covering a lot more of this stuff in the future. Now, this for me is very hard to talk about because I don't really know how to cover it. Now, I could just be giving the information, but I feel like I need to give my real thought on it, which is obviously hoping that everyone's okay. Yeah, but this is definitely one of the hardest things to report because it's just very hard, and I do like reporting on types of items. I feel the need that I need to report on this as well, as it's such a big event, and I can't leave it. Like, I can't just leave it. It's something that happened and needs to be talked about. And you can see that not many people are talking about it, even though the amount of people that have gone missing from it. But I'd say in my own brain or opinion, this was bad. This was very bad, but it will get better, and it will continue to get better, and eventually it will be better. But as I said, it will linger. But that's the part where you stay strong. The lingering part is why everyone stays strong for what happened. But I think that's all I'm going to say for today. Because it's just very hard for me to report about. I don't really know how to explain it in my own way. So that's why I've gone out of my way to just read other people's thoughts, but also sort of give my own intake on it. But yeah, I hope. I just want to say I hope everyone's okay. That's all I can say. Like, yeah, that's all I can say, and I might be saying a lot, but it's true, and I honestly think that's, like, I honestly hope for that, and I'd say everyone needs to stay strong. But yeah. Anyways, it's definitely a more sadder episode. If I don't even know how to end this, but it was definitely a more sadder episode of the podcast. Just for the families out there, stay strong. Because for people in America and all around the world, you will get through this. Especially people in Miami, you will get through this, and the families, you will get through this. And for anyone who came out injured, you will be fine. You will 100% be fine. But I think that's where I'm going to end it today. Alright, well, I guess I'll be ending it now. Goodbye.